I'm going to show you how I make the absolute best, my favorite Breadmaker bread. This is going to be oatmeal bread, and what I did to begin with was boiled 1 cup of water, brought it up to a boil, dump in a half a cup of the old-fashioned oats. You can use the other ones, but I prefer the old-fashioned because they're less refined. And then I'm going to let them sit here and cool while I go have my breakfast. And then we'll come back and we'll throw everything in the bread maker and we'll have bread ready in a few hours. Okay, next step on my Breadmaker oatmeal bread is to put in 1/4 of a cup of brown sugar in with the oatmeal, and then I'm going to get a teaspoon of salt. Should have gotten a little better organized here, but oh well. Getting out my measuring utensil here. Okay, there's the salt. And then 2 tablespoons of oil, cooking oil. I use either olive oil or safflower oil to, as much as possible, avoid the possibility of GMO contamination. I know we can't totally get away from that, but I try to do the best I can. So I'm going to set this down and put in 2 tablespoons of oil, and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, I am now going to start putting things in to the bread maker. I'm getting just slightly less than a tablespoon of yeast. That goes in first. I have an old-fashioned kind of bread maker, one of the first ones that was ever put on the market. It's one of these DAC turbo bakers, and it still works great. So one of these days, I know I'm gonna have to get a better bread maker, but for now, as long as it's working, we have round loaves instead of regular. But it really works just fine. So now I'm going to add the flour, and I'm using bread flour because bread flour works much better than just all-purpose flour. And I am putting in, I'm using a 1/2 cup measure. I'm putting in 1.5 cups of the bread flour. And then normally I have just regular whole wheat that I put in. I don't happen to have any today. I have the white whole wheat. So that's what I'm going to use, since that's what I have on hand. And I put in 1.5 cups of that. So there we go. And now, the last step, this is just a very, very easy recipe. The last step is to take my oatmeal mixture here and get some hot tap water. I'm going to run that till it feels quite warm to my hand. And then I'll put 1/2 cup, actually looks like 2 half cups, but this is a 1/4 of a cup measure I'm using. A half a cup actually in the oatmeal, and then I'm going to take another 1/4 of a cup over near the bread maker with me to add in as needed when I go ahead and turn this on, because it's hard to know exactly how much liquid you'll need. You always have to make a few adjustments. And I've found that this white whole wheat is very, very fine, and it soaks up more moisture than some of the other whole wheats do. So generally this, when I use that, it takes more liquid. Okay, pouring that all into the bread maker. And I want to get my last bits of oatmeal out of there. Okay. And then I'm just going to close the lid. I'm going to clear it. And I don't have to make a selection. It's already on the default. And just punch start. Let that go for a second here. And then open it and add more water. This may take that whole other 1/4 of a cup. Maybe even just a little bit more. Let's wait and see here. You want the dough to form into a ball on the paddles. Occasionally I get too much liquid in and then I have to add a little bit more flour, but this looks like it may be just about right. I'm going to watch that for a minute yet. This whole process takes less than 5 minutes to do, and it's a really delicious loaf that my grandson just loves. If I don't have some of this on hand, he is not a happy camper. Okay, yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and close it up and leave it and come back when it's done. I'm just going to show you here what a nice smooth ball this dough formed on the top of the paddle here in the bread maker. So this is pretty much how you want it to look. If it mounds up toward one side or something like that, you know, that means it's too liquidy and you need to add a little extra flour to it. So, but this looks pretty good consistency. I'll come back later when it's done. Okay, here is the final bread out of the bread maker. Let me just open that up there. This one rose a bit and got onto the lid even. A little bit of the top of the bread. Usually that happens when I make the bread during the daytime because it's warmer in the kitchen, and I forget to compensate and cut down a little bit on the yeast. But this, normally when I make it during the night, sometimes, well, most of the time I'll put it on before I go to bed and it'll be ready in the morning. Usually it doesn't rise quite this much. It makes a nice rounded loaf. Okay, getting ready to dump it out and slice it up here. Like I said earlier, this is out of a round bread maker, one of the very first that ever came on the market. And it has the paddle always gets stuck in the bottom of the bread. So I'm just going to pull that out here. pop that little bit in my mouth. And I'll put that in the sink. And then I need my bread knife. Got washed a little bit earlier but didn't get dried, so let me just dry that off. And take that and cut it more or less where the paddle was, so and I'm going to have to set this down here. Let's see. Get a picture of it this way. Okay, now you can see we've got the two halves here, and I'm just going to cut off the top here and have a slice of this delicious. This is one of the softest and most delicious of any of the whole wheat versions of bread that I make. Has the oatmeal, the old-fashioned oats, and whole wheat, half whole wheat and half white bread flour, and it is very delicious. My grandson won't eat any other kind of bread but this. He has serious withdrawal from Grandma's bread when I don't have any made, so I try to keep some on hand all the time. There you are.